I'm not fond of chocolate chip cookies. You don't like chocolate chip cookies? Yeah, I mean, I do, but I'm not real fond of them. Those other ones, man, I could add all kinds of stuff to them. I don't like sugar.
All right. All right, all right, all right. It's time to get started with our family Wednesday night service here at Christ the King Community Church. Hey, Jen, go ahead and throw that question back up there. I'm curious to know the answers to this one here. How many of you guys said to get rid of snickerdoodles? How many of you guys said sugar cookies? How many of you guys said gingerbread? Oh, look at that. Who said chocolate chip cookies? That's you. Oh, none of the above right there, yes. All right. That's funny. All right. We have a different type of service planned for you guys tonight. So we're going to be just singing one song tonight, and then we're going to start a series of videos I think you guys are really going to enjoy. So let's, those of you that are willing and able, we'll ask you to stand to your feet, and let's get our worship started. Don't you hate it when you're that person? You may be seated.
You want these off? Over here? Not yet. Okay.
Okay, before we dive into our videos, I did want to pay some special recognition to a certain someone in here by the name of Earl Rule. Earl Rule. All right. So right here's Earl. The village of Fredericktown just posted this week. This is what they wrote. Hundreds of Fredericktown residents know Earl Rule as he lived in a village for most of his life, and he works for the village for more than 20 years. Earl plowed snow, he repaired water mains, he attended to sewer backups, such as maybe reading meters and filling potholes, and much, much more. Earl has a way of becoming a true friend of virtually everyone he comes into contact with. Last night, Mayor Daley and Village Council presented Earl with a proclamation and a key to the village. Earl is enjoying his retirement with his wife Carolyn, and they reside in their newly built home here in Fredericktown. Congratulations, Earl, on retirement. Well done. I'm curious, Earl, does that key get you to like into every door in Fredericktown? Is that what that is? Okay. All right. So, like I said, we're going to be starting off a really fun video series that I think you guys are going to enjoy. It's the glory of Christmas. So we're going to watch 3 videos tonight, and then we'll continue next week with the last 2 of this series. But I'll give you a synopsis here on the first one here. Joel is the director of the church's production of The Glory of Christmas. He's got the challenging job of holding together his team of ragtag actors who portray the key characters from the Christmas story. His passion for telling the story of Jesus' birth is contagious even through the stress of the production that overwhelms him at times. He inspires viewers to consider the nativity story. He asks them all the important question, are you willing to kneel at the manger and believe in the miracle of Christmas? This is a video that's part of the mockumentary style series, The Glory of Christmas. Check it out.
This is the story of a ragtag bunch of church members who set out to perform a Christmas play, and the director who tried his hardest to just keep it all together. The Glory of Christmas.
Our annual Christmas show is tonight, and all the hard work, the blood, sweat, and tears comes down to this very moment. And like any show, there's going to be some last-minute snafus. Like, for example, my middle-aged Mary, she's been having contractions for about 16 hours. My Joseph hasn't memorized all his lines.
Amy? Mary, my dear Mary. It's been a long journey.
My wise man is convinced that the nativity set will collapse. And my shepherd can't find a lemon for his tea.
Articulatory agility is a marvelous ability, manipulating with dexterity.
We are telling the most beautiful and important story that's ever been told about an event that changed the...
We've lost the lamb.
Quick, everyone make lamb noises! Call her back to the flock! He knows the lamb's a dog, right?
Medical experts actually do not recommend this method for dealing with panic attacks.
But my mom recommends lavender behind the ears.
Get away from me! I'm calling an ambulance.
I think I'll be fine.
It's for me.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Thank you guys so much for coming.
All right, places, everyone. It's time.
And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And all went to be taxed, everyone into his own city. And Joseph went up from Galilee, out of the city of Nazareth, into Judea, and unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem.
I have this long-held tradition, I guess you could call it. Every year during the performance, I step off the stage and leave the building. I just want God to do what God does. And the shepherds came with haste, and they found Mary and Joseph and the babe
lying in the manger.
Doesn't matter where you see the nativity story, whether it's on a street corner or in a church or even on your neighbor's mantle. When you see it, you have to consider it then and there. Are you willing to kneel at the manger? Will you believe in the miracle of Christmas, the glory of Christmas? trust that this is the way that God chose to save us all.
And all who heard it wondered at those things, which were told them by the shepherds. But Mary kept all these things and pondered them in her heart. And the shepherds returned,
glorifying and worshiping God for all the things that they have seen and heard, as it was said unto them. Amen.
Okay, part 2. Tony comes across as a know-it-all to everyone else involved in the church's production of The Glory of Christmas. He shares useless facts with everyone, but when he doesn't know something, he gets creative with his answers. But Tony has a kind of heart that understands where the real treasures are, what they are, who they are, and he understands that the King of Kings comes first as a lowly servant.
This is the story of a ragtag bunch of church members who set out to perform a Christmas play, and the director who tried his hardest to just keep it all together. The Glory of Christmas.
There's a little bit of controversy over my choice to cast Tony as the wise man in our church nativity play, because, well, Tony can sometimes be...
Yep, that's some good birch.
Birch? Why would they use birch? It's not even indigenous to Israel.
Tony's just a little bit of a know-it-all.
Did acacia not even cross your mind?
That's probably birch.
Potato salad is of German origin, brought over here by European settlers. You know, fascinating point. The carb load on that is 37 grams. Great for marathon runners.
There's no doubt that Tony knows a lot of useless facts. But when he doesn't know something...
Now, of all the wise men's gifts, myrrh was the most profound. It was used to prepare a body for burial.
What does real myrrh smell like?
I imagine it has like a lush floral scent.
Nah, it's woodsy. Warm, aromatic, musky.
Oh, my mom leads the essential oils small group.
But there's a certain something about Tony. Something that he doesn't even see about himself.
Put your shoulder into it so it doesn't strip the head.
That's like...
Hey, well done. That's good. Good job.
Tony has the kind of heart that understands where the real treasures are. What they are, who they are. And he understands the King of Kings came first as the lowly servant.
This baby, this beautiful gift, this is the glory of God, the glory of Christmas, who would eventually sacrifice himself for us. For me, well, let's just say, with that kind of knowledge, you can never approach the manger quite the same way again.
That's why he's the wise man.
Okay, our last one here. Dan, a formerly trained prodigy of the theater arts, is the longest-running cast member reprising his role of the shepherd in the glory of Christmas year after year after year after year. Though his method acting may annoy the other cast members at times, Dan reminds us all that God gave the lowest in the land the highest honor to share the message of the birth of a Savior.
This is the story of a ragtag bunch of church members who set out to perform a Christmas play, and the director who tried his hardest to just keep it all together. The glory of Christmas.
I am the longest running cast member of the Nativity Ensemble of our church. Well, I don't like to mention it, but I am a formally trained prodigy of the theater arts.
Having Dan as part of our cast is fantastic.
Lord, I am surely blessed beyond measure.
Okay, okay, good. Let's do it again, but this time with more emotion, okay? Hey, I want you to Meryl Streep this up, okay? You got it.
Dan thinks he's helping, but all he does is compare everything to Meryl Streep.
Tony, need you to channel your inner Meryl.
My dear Mary.
Stop.
It is.
I need to Meryl this over for a minute. Oh, this is no way to treat your actors. Meryl would have seen this and walked immediately.
Really, Dan? Because this potato salad looks so Meryl right now.
Suddenly, the most splendiferous heavenly being appeared to my cohorts and me.
Stick to the script, please.
Okay, Joel, it's called The Glory of Christmas. I think the shepherds deserve a little more poetic language, don't you think?
It's the Bible, Dan. God may beg to differ with you.
By day, I make a living as an accountant, a dedicated one. But a dedicated actor must lose themselves and fully become the character.
Do you have any questions for me at all?
What's that smell?
Green pastures. Green pastures, Annette. I am so method. I haven't bathed in a month.
You really need to take a bath.
I can't. These shepherds were society's misfits. You know, they were, sure, transfixed by a choir of angels, but also amazed that God had chosen them. They were the scrawny kid in PE. Yeah, the nerd who went alone to the prom. Yeah, they were the Glee Club president. Twice. Yeah. They were the least of these. God asked me to be the keeper of the most important message that's ever been kept. To tell everyone that he sent the greatest gift ever, the Prince of Peace. The lowest in the land is given the highest honor.
What's that smell?
Come back next week for the story of Joseph and Mary. We'll hand it over to Pastor Baker now.
Book of Revelation, chapter 12. And I'm not going to go back and review tonight chapter 11, because I figure if we've made it this far, we should continue. I do want to tell you, and I'm sure that most of you are very much aware, that there is a lot going on today in our nation, in our community, all around us. And I believe that we are, with the storm clouds that are gathering, we are seeing the great setup instead of the reset, concerning which will happen in the latter days. Facebook and YouTube continue to give us information concerning, well, a great deal of things, not all of which makes a lot of sense. But I do want to talk about something tonight that is, I kind of rewrote everything. I had 67 pages of notes, not for tonight, but over the next 3 chapters. And I put 14 more pages in there just to share with you tonight. I know, sounds wonderful, don't it? But how many of you have heard a little bit about the vaccination that's going to be coming? How many of you have heard a great deal of controversy concerning the vaccine that's supposed to be coming? Okay. Because, you know, the thing is, we have information from both Facebook and YouTube and any other tubes that are out there concerning why we mustn't take the vaccination, because we will either be filled with nanobots that will track everything that we do, or I received something I thought was interesting when Bill Gates was talking about the fact that our DNA would be altered forever if we take this vaccination. And I heard by way of Facebook, which you know is filled with tremendous truths, and it's almost like watching CBS. Or that other program. But they were talking about that if women take this vaccination, they will be sterile for the rest of their lives. Did any of you read that one? 3 or 4 of you, yeah. And so I would like to point out again something that I said in the very beginning, that when the first rider of the apocalypse went out, the one that was on the white horse, he went out to deceive and put down deception as the number one thing that he was willing to hedge all future events on deception, to the point where truth certainly has died in the streets, and we no longer have sources of information. Just recently, you know, I think most of us were aware that if you watch Fox News, it was like always getting the right news, right? Well, Fox has fallen in a foxhole, and it's not as truthful as it was in the past. Next slide, please. I think all of this is revolves around the mark of the beast. You can see my little figure up there. I have, well, you scan all these codes. So I got it on the forehead. See it? Doesn't say 666. But there is an entire group of people that believe that the spaces in between all of those add up to 666, along with corona. Corona, when you take C, which is the third letter of the alphabet, let's see, A, B, C, yeah, corona is 3. O would be number O, maybe 16. When you add them all up, according to given the alphabet, the numerical number, like A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4. If you spell out corona and you take the numerical alphabet, you'll come up with an answer of 36. That's 3 6s. Get it? The Pope wears a headband. It's called Vicarius Filii, which means Vicar of God. If you take the Roman numerals for Vicar of God, they come out to be 666. Some time ago, Ronald Reagan, they took his name and got 666 out of it. I don't know how they were able to do that out of, I think you had to include his middle name. And but Ronald Reagan, and recently people had out there that Trump was also the devil. But in this article that was published last week, it's called in the lab. It was called COVID-19 and the Mark of the Beast, and I thought it was an interesting article because some believe that it is truly this COVID vaccination is part of the Mark of the Beast. And in the last few weeks about teaching on Revelation, I have stated on numerous occasions that I don't believe that it is a physical sign, or a visible sign, but I think it is a spiritual sign. And so I want to talk about that tonight. Next slide, please. So we're at this point where the vaccination is about to be released, and there is so much controversy about it right now. People are afraid to take it. Some want to take it, but some folks are really totally fearful of taking it. They're afraid that if they take it, they're going to turn into the beast or something like that. So how could the mark be non-physical and invisible? If having the mark was what allowed people to buy or sell things, and in the next chapter of the book of Revelation, it says if you don't have the mark of the beast, you can't buy or sell anything. So therefore, it is a physical application. You must be able to see that number on their wrist or on their forehead. You have to be able to see that number. So the mark needs to be visible in order to do that. Would you all agree that the number has to be visible to do that? And there isn't enough evidence that the vaccine, by the way, is a number of the beast. Although, including a bill that's currently before the House of Representatives, number 6666. And that's the very letters of Corona, by the way, according to this new math. Next slide. Here it is. COVID-19 equals 3 plus 6 plus 4 plus 9 plus 4 plus 1 plus 9. That equals 36, or 3 6s, 666, unequivocal proof that COVID-19 is the mark of the beast. Somebody spent a lot of time doing that, I think. There it is. Is it pretty frightening from here? Well, let me go on. I think today, the biggest question is, and people have right now, is, and they're very good questions, and is whether or not they should take the vaccination, because and I think a response now is necessary. It has to start somewhere, and I think it ought to start in the church. But we need to start at square one so that we understand what's going on. And so I told you I wouldn't review chapter 11. No, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the book now and review it instead. Well, I won't go all the way back. I'll go back to the letters to the churches. Okay? That's only in chapter 2. I didn't go all the way back to chapter 1, so we are moving right along now. And you need to remember that Revelation is a first century letter to the 7 churches, right? This revelation of Jesus Christ was written to the churches. Are we all in agreement there? Some of you that have read the book of Revelation, remember, that's how it starts, that John is to write to the churches. Okay. And so he has these churches that he's writing to in Asia Minor. And they're letters in antiquity, and they're kind of like modern letters, though. And, he was talking about things that are situational, personal, and contextual. And to understand a letter between 2 people or groups of people, you really need to know a thing or two about what necessitated the sending of the letter in the first place, right? Why would you send a letter? I think that's important for us to take it into context. Why is John writing to these churches? There are things that are happening in John's day that he needed to address. And there are things that are happening in our day that we need to address as well. So the letter of Revelation, we need to look at the historical situation. And I think sometimes when we study the book of Revelation, many evangelicals just jump or skip over that step and they go straight to whatever the application is that they want to utilize. And it's a grave mistake, because if we completely detach our modern day application from a text original ideology, there may be a great deal of confusion between the two. And the other thing that's going to happen is we might misapply the text. And sometimes it gets a little embarrassing because we misapplied the text. So in Revelation 13:17, it says, no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. And that is the name of the beast, or the number of its name. And so to interpret it rightly, we need to know its context, and we need to know where it came from. And some historical data is absolutely necessary for us to look at, the letter's period of time, if you will. And so when we look at that, it begins to shed a little light about that 666 number, the number of the beast, and how you take it, or whether or not you can take it, because I think many of us believe that we can be tricked into taking that number. How many of you think that you're going to be fooled into taking that number? No, none of you raised your hand. That's really good, because I think it's important for you to understand whether or not you take a virus that somebody puts out and says this is a vaccination against a virus. If we look at what that we've been given, it would say, this is the number of the beast, and if you take it, you're going to go straight to hell. I don't think anybody is going to take the mark of the beast by accident. I think it has to be a deliberate thing. God is not going to allow your salvation to be predicated upon an error in judgment. Okay? It doesn't make a bit of sense, does it? Well, let me go on. Have I lost you guys? Would you like me to stop here and go to something more exciting? I think you really ought to get a hold of this, though, because Roman emperors were often defined after, or deified after they died, becoming gods for the Roman citizens to worship. And this is what I'm saying. It's contextual because of the fact that, like, Julius Caesar died and he was deified. So his son comes along, Augustus Caesar, and he took for himself the title Son of God. If his dad was God, he's Son of God. Okay? You see this? What happens is they deified him. The people were supposed to worship him as a god. His son comes along. After he dies, he becomes the Son of God. And so that was what his title was. He said, I want to be called the Son of God. And the more the despotic rulers or emperors of the first century sought to be recognized as gods while they were still living. Some didn't want to wait till they died. They wanted to be worshiped while they were still here. Okay? And so Nero was such a emperor. Domitian was another. Suetonius is a well-known ancient historian, and he says Domitian demanded to be addressed as both Lord and God. That's what he wanted. I don't want to be just the Son of God. I don't want to be God. I want to be Lord and God. That's a better name for me. He was rather pompous twit, but that's what he wanted to be called. Either way, if you were a Christian at that time, the time that John is writing this, if you were a Christian at that time, you might very well have been plagued with a great deal of angst and fear and uncertainty, because of the fact that you were to worship that man as God. In some places, they required you to deny your faith and worship that God. In other words, you would have to go someplace and burn incense to that God, like Augustus or Nero, and you had to declare that you were not a Christian. There was no other God besides Nero. He was the great God. So you had, that was part and parcel to the expectation of the people during that time. So, and by the way, many scholars associate the number of the beast with Nero Caesar. They also have a way of taking the language of that time and using the numbers so that his number comes out as 666 too. So that means we have a multitude of 666 carriers of the beast's name. By the way, there is a computer in Brussels, the greatest computer in the world. It can handle all of the monetary things of the whole entire world. And they named it the Beast. Okay? One of the numbers that are used so often is 666. Matter of fact, if you say 6 in English, it's 6. See that? You people don't think I'm smart, but right there proves you. And it's German, it's what? Any German speakers? What is it? 6. And how about Spanish? What is it? What is it? French? Uno, dos. No, that's the other one. Un, deux, trois, quatre. It's 6. It's kind of funny because all these languages, 6. So you can see why this 6 number gets a lot of attention, right? It's used in math quite often. It is used in our language quite often. It has been used time and time again to tell people, which devil we're supposed to avoid. And so, and again, the first letter in the Greek alphabet is alpha, which has been given the number 1. The second beta was given 2, so on. So when you look at Nero's name, Neron Khazar, and translate it into Hebrew, the result is the number of the beast, 666. No wonder John is writing this letter to the churches in some code that they're familiar with. Are you following this so far? Have I confused you totally? I'm trying to be a little slower than I was last week because I really talked fast last week. And so I'm hoping that you'll get this because I think tonight's lesson is very important for a multitude of reasons. So if you all go to the next image, please. So he's writing to the churches. And go ahead to the next one as well. So he's writing to the churches, and all of these gods of Rome wants to be specified as a deity. I'd like to point out, this is Rome now. And what about this picture is important, do you think? I'm sorry? Yes, it's ruins. All of these great, I am God, Son of God, Lord and God, all of them have come to this ending. It's important for us to understand that there is only one God, and that God said, my throne is forever. These have all come down. So, and the next slide, please. So now we get to the point of the image of the beast. What's going to happen? Finally, I took something from that series in the past, and it said, and I took this from A Thief in the Night, Part 3, for my slide, because it had the image of the beast up there, and the story continues. And certainly the story continues to us as well today, because everything that we're looking at today, people are so afraid that the mark of the beast is going to something that's going to come, attack them, and catch them unaware. I want to assure you tonight that that's not what's going to happen. And that's why I thought it was important for me to change the message and add this into it, because I didn't want to gloss over the fact, and I'll go into great detail in just a minute. We have a pretty good idea about the identity of the beast, yes? How many of you believe that this beast that they're talking about is from hell? Satan and all. Sorry. So this, we kind of know who he is, and so the thing is. If we were going to worship this devil, do you think worshiping this devil would be something that we'd done unintentionally, or we have to do it intentionally. That's an important thing, because here's the thing. From the writings of Pliny, we learn how professing Christians' faith were put to the test by having them worship the image of Caesar. They had to worship the image of Caesar. Remember, he's writing this letter to the churches, and he's explaining what's going to happen even in our time, because the beast is coming. But I think and Rome was slightly different, I think. Caesar's image would be on coins, right? Along with his claim to divinity would have been on the coins. And so the emperor's boast was in some way divine. He said, and because he put it on the money. And so one scholar observed that one could do little commerce without handling such a mark. Does that make sense, what I'm saying? I can't hardly do anything without holding the image of Caesar. You couldn't buy or sell because his picture was on every single solitary piece of money that was in Rome. So, and the emperor's divinity appeared on many coins and even shipping bills and other documents. And so I understand the buy and sell passage a little bit better. When it comes to the beast, his mark, and the worship of the beast image, the historical data seems to be pointing us in one direction. It's simply a reference to how the imperial cult impacted one's participation in the local economy. If you were going to worship the emperor, you would worship him by holding everything that he had. And if you were a Christian during that time, you had to find a way to either honor him, worship him, and you had to deny your God. What I'm trying to tell you is, in order for you to take the mark of the beast, you're going to have to worship him and deny your God. Now, you say, well, I don't think people will do that. I think people will do that. And they will do it intentionally, because more and more and more, as the world continues to denigrate into the absolute abyss that it's going towards, people are going away from the church. Whoever thought that there would come a time when people would attack the church with impunity the way that they're doing today? There was a time when a thief would not rob a church. You don't rob a church. You didn't want to come through the wind and find God at the altar. So they didn't rob a church, but things have changed today. People go into a church and shoot people. Things have changed today. We have gotten into a time of great darkness, and it's only beginning now. We see it. It's on the horizon, but it's there. And people are going further and further away from God. And the further away from God they get, they start seeking something that will fill the longing that is in them. Even not too long ago, the guy that heads up the Federation of the European Common Market said, we need a man to take over, and send us that man, and be he angel or demon, we will use him. Oh, I think that's rather plain, that whether he's an angel or a demon, if he gets the job done, we'll accept him. So a person in the first century could genuine, whatever that word is that has genuine in it. Genuinely? Is that right? Genuinely? How do you say it? Genuinely. It shouldn't even be in our dictionary now that I think about it, because I don't like it. And even though I'm looking at it right here in front of me, I genuinely. They would have to participate in the economy at the expense of their faith in Jesus. So it's not something that's going to catch you unaware, I don't think. And the last part is the key. In other words, at certain times and in certain locations in the empire, the only way to be a good standing citizen would have been simply to curse Christ and worship Caesar's image. That's just as simple as it can be. You're out no trouble. Have you ever been in a situation where you found yourself reluctant to tell people who you were as a Christian? Don't raise your hand. Nobody. But you knew as soon as you brought it up, somebody was going to say, oh, yeah, you're one of them. I have, in many situations, I've had the opportunity. I remember I was at a bowling alley, and in this bowling alley, it was supposed to have been a Christian. No, it wasn't. This came later. It was just as bad as the first one. But I remember showing up, and the guy said, he said, oh, you're Reverend Baker. I said, yeah. He says, well, don't expect me to watch my language while I'm bowling with you. He says, I'm not going to do that. And I said, well, don't expect me not to preach when you do cuss. He said, what does that mean? I said, what did you mean? He said, well, sometimes I cuss. I said, sometimes I preach. Within 2 years, they wanted me off of the bowling league. I had ruined the beer sales. People were coming to my church from the bowling alley. I messed everything up going there. But have you ever been in a situation where you knew, maybe it was your family, you know, or something, or you just kind of didn't want to say anything because you knew that as soon as you did, it was going to start the controversy up, and you were a little bit apprehensive about bringing up your faith. And in some places that we have been, we know that if we bring up our faith, we're going to be denigrated by that individual. And sometimes we do it anyway, but sometimes we're a little reluctant to do that. And so, here's the thing. A big problem for the Christians in Asia Minor, it was impossible for them to make a living and worship Christ at the same time. I don't know what the future is going to have for America, but let's look at the vaccination again. There is every likelihood that you won't be able to get on a plane unless you have a piece of paper that says you've been vaccinated. There is every likelihood that in the future, so you could see how people would get nervous about taking the vaccination because people are going to say, but if I do it, I have to have proof from the governor that I've had such a thing done. So I understand why people are frightened about the future, because we do have some strange things that are going on today, yes? So, but this is kind of interesting here. And so we look at it, is it a physical mark? And I think the answer is no. There is a theologian by the name of Craig Keener who says often he's given thoughts on this point, and he notes how the mark of the beast in Revelation 13 acts as a parallel to the seal that is placed on the foreheads of Christians. Remember back in the Old Testament when God said, I'm going to destroy Jerusalem, he said, but not until all of my servants are sealed in their forehead. Y'all remember that, the story in the Old Testament? Any of you? Well, I was kind of hoping you did. It's in the book of Ezekiel. You want to go back there and read it. So the seal actually has an Old Testament basis, namely in Ezekiel 9, where a mark was said to have been placed on the foreheads of God's people. Okay? Now, there is Keener also points to another Jewish text of the period known as the Psalms of Solomon that describes a mark placed on evil people. And he observes how the two marks in Ezekiel and the Psalms of Solomon were clearly symbolic, visible only to God and to his angels. So what does that mean? God knows the very intention of your heart and your soul. God knows who's his. How many of you have a mark on your forehead right now? None of you. But don't you think God knows which one of you belongs to him? While I'm at it, don't you think he knows those of you that's just been playing being Christian? But you aren't really? He knows that too. He knows the ones that come to church to hear what he has to say, and those that don't really care. It's just another social function for me. I have come to see my friends, to talk, to giggle, to laugh. But God is secondary to me. He's not primary. Don't you think God knows that too? Don't you think that grandfather may know what his grandchildren are doing at any given instance in time? Do you think that God reveals that to grandfather? Or is it something else that might happen? Has grandfather's children been called out in the middle of a service for not paying attention? Yes. Has grandfather got senile in his old age? And I suggest he has not. Be very, very careful about your future. And that goes for those that are not my grandchildren, who happen to be in the same crowd. Just checking. Most of the time, they're really good. Either I've said something really funny tonight, or they're going to lynch me when it's over. By the way, I've had a lot of mob rule here lately, from the littlest ones all the way up, because I discontinued children's church, discontinued Wednesday services for everybody else. And they said, but now you've messed it up for all of us. I can be bought. So the vaccine 666, mark of the beast. I think the mark of the beast is like the seal of the Lamb. It's symbolic. Those of you that have been sealed by the Lamb, you don't carry a mark, but God knows who you are. And those of you that will be marked by the devil, you may not have the same mark. And you say, no, the Bible clearly states that it's going to be on your arm or it's going to be in your head. And it clearly, so we're going to get to that in just a minute. Growing up, I never heard of the stuff that I've heard today, that we're hearing today. And most people in the evangelical tradition didn't either. But without the background information, people are being tossed to and fro today because of endless speculation. It just doesn't stop. It is continuous, non-stop. And it's sad because people, and many of them are sincere Christians, are terrified that they're going to be forced to take the mark of the beast. And I got to tell you, it's not Bill Gates. He's not the mark of the beast. Bill Gates is an aggravation. That's true. There ain't no doubt about it. But I don't think that it's going to be a computer either. I don't think I'm going to get a chip either. I don't think I'm going to be tricked into taking it. I want to give you, and I know some of you are saying, I just don't agree with that, and I get it. I understand that. Trust me, I do. But I'm just saying that the historical data does not permit us to think of the mark of the beast as something you can accidentally take. It was something that was forced on them. Now, with that being said, there is every likelihood that in the future, the devil and his minions will try to force you to take it. And that's the difference. And you will know. It won't catch you unaware. You will know whether or not. Now, the Bible kind of makes it clear to us that this is not going to be something that's going to take us unaware. I think if the thing is, it is a mark of loyalty and worship, which requires full cognitive and heartfelt awareness of what you're doing. Otherwise, it's not worship, and he wants worship. So it's going to be what he requires. He's not going to be able to get it by being sweet. He's going to get it because he's going to force the issue so that you have to worship him. And if there is some future mark imposed on people by some nefarious person, then to take that mark, you'll know exactly what you're doing, namely cursing Christ and pledging devotion to his enemy. I want you to kind of see that because it's important for us. Whatever decisions we're going to make concerning the vaccine, I want you to take it because whether or not it's good for you, whether or not you don't trust it, because it's a vaccine, but not because that it's related to 666. There's too much information out there today about stuff that just doesn't make a great deal of sense. When you take it into its historical data, it doesn't add up. Remember who he was writing to, the 7 churches, and they were going through it at that time. Nero was requiring them to worship him. So he's trying to tell us what this last demon is going to be like. And some public policies are good, right? And some are terrible. But either way, unless they require you to forsake your faith in Jesus Christ, and to be and Jesus as the exclusive object of your worship, they have no relation to the mark of the beast. And what we know about the historical context of these biblical texts is the mark of the beast must be tied back into worship. It is to be applied properly. Are you going to worship the beast? That's what he wants. And I think he's not going to trick you into it. Are y'all still following me, or would you like to lynch me because I'm not going along with the normal status quo? I think a lot of people today believe that they're going to get the mark of the beast, whether, I mean, it's just going to, one day they'll be going, oh no, I didn't know that. It'll be a deliberate choice. Next slide, please. So, here we are. And by the way, there are numbers already that you've taken and you got over it. Check your Social Security card. Now, children have to have a Social Security card right after they're born, right? So if there is a number that people would take, you don't have to worry about the one in the future. You already got one, Social Security. You took it. You were tricked into it. No, you weren't. You were thinking, hey, if I take this number and I work all my life, at the end, they'll give me about 1/118th of what I put in it. Well, let me go on. So here we are. The woman is identified in Israel, gives birth, and her child is caught up to God and to his throne. I think this is where we left off the last time, I think. How many of you, how much time do I have, Marilyn? Well, my little addendum might have been more extensive than it was supposed to be. Did any of you get anything out of that at all? I hope you did. By the way, at the same time, I want you to understand, I do know that the devil is going to do everything that he can to darken the world to the place that people will deliberately embrace him as the answer to the future. But it will be done deliberately. It will not come as a surprise. Yes, sir.
In your opinion, in the timeline of this, do you feel like the mark of the beast would be before the rapture or after?
Now, that is a very good question. If you're a pre-tribulationist, it'll be after. You're gone. Okay? If you're a post-tribulationist, I don't know why you would be, but if you were, it is something that you will see as part of the normal course of the 7 years. If you're a pre-wrath guy like I am, you will see it develop before you're taken out. I'm a pre-wrath guy, so I believe that the Bible says he who lets will let until he be taken out, which is the Holy Ghost, okay? And that man of sin be revealed, okay? The man of sin is the one that we're talking about, and he will be revealed. The question I have is, who's he going to be revealed to? Is he going to be revealed to people that are gone? No, because they're already up there. Is he going to be revealed to those that are waiting till it's all over? No, because they won't accept it. Is he going to be revealed to the ones that can see it and the ones that are here? Possibly. So I would say that is going to be right around the mid portion of the tribulation period. And I believe that the church is going to see the beginnings of the mark of the beast. I don't know if we'll be subjected to it at the same level as other people, but I do see that we'll see it started. When you see all of these things, he said, lift up your head, your redemption draweth nigh. So in this situation, I think the church is going to be here long enough to see it develop, and then before his wrath is actually poured out and everything falls apart, I think the church is leaving. Now, that's my opinion, but there's just as many that will tell you that this will happen in the middle of tribulation, but the church will already be gone, okay? So it won't apply to them at all. The church will not ever have to worry about taking the mark of the beast. Those that are post-tribulationists, of course, I don't know how they really view that, because it doesn't make a bit of sense. They have to throw out a great deal of spiritual data in order to accept it. So between the two, I would think in the middle portion of the tribulation period. That's my opinion. But there's just as many out there that would tell you that I'm wrong. Okay? And I'm okay with that, because in the study of eschatology, I don't know if anybody's right. We'll have to wait. That's why we all become panmillennialists, which means it all pan out in the end, because we're not really quite sure. So, but yeah, it's a good question. For me, I believe that it's going to be when that man of sin is to be revealed. And I think the only people that he can be revealed to is the church. I think there's the only ones that would recognize him for what he is. The rest of the world is going to embrace him as Savior. And then, of course, they'll take the mark of the beast, because they're going to embrace him as Savior. Only the church will rebel against it. And if you look at the political climate and the spiritual climate of that time, you can see that there is a group of people that are resisting at that time. If it is the Gentiles that are going to be saved during now I'll probably never get back, but if it is going to be the Gentiles that will be saved during the tribulation period, I have a problem with that, because it's just like this. Why, if we have Ronnie over here, Ronnie, hold your hand up, and we have Danny over here, and Danny, hold your hand up. Now, I tell Ronnie he has to get ready, because I'm coming back. And so Ronnie does. Ronnie, you ready? Ronnie's ready. I tell Danny he has to be ready, because I'm coming back. But Danny says, well, I'm not quite ready yet. So God said, oh, Danny, I get it. I understand. You need a little bit more time. So I'm going to take Ronnie, but I'm going to give you another 3.5 years to make up your mind. That makes God a respecter of persons. Now he says to Ronnie, you have to be ready at this time, but Danny gets a second shot. That's one of the problems that I have with the pre-tribulational doctrine. Because I think that if you're not on the first bus, if I was you, I wouldn't be looking for the second. Unless I missed the first one, then I'd be pleading for the second. So that's my opinion. And I'd like to point out there's probably a multitude of people, including and very wise people out there, that would disagree with what I just said wholeheartedly, because they are totally pre-tribulationists, and I kind of hope they're right. I don't have any Bible for it, but I hope that they're right. They got Bible for it. You could ask Andy. I think he's a pre-tribulationist. And let me see. We got another one over here right close to you as a pre-tribulationist. There's one over here. Have we got any more? Don't worry, I'll root you out before it's done. So in eschatology, or the study of the second coming of Christ, I don't think anybody has a handle on it right now. I don't. But I do think that we're all going to get the handle on it, because things are being revealed to the church today that heretofore has not been revealed. So we're beginning to see deeper than we've ever seen before. So I think, and we have a great deal of people out there that are delving deep into Scripture, and I believe that these theologians are going to explain to us in the latter days, and as it becomes more and more a revelation of Jesus Christ, and which it is a revelation of Jesus Christ, we're going to see more and more. So we're at that point now where, Jesus, he says, and it gives us kind of like a quick synopsis of the child. The child, or the woman, represents Israel. The child represents Jesus. Jesus is caught up, and some say, well, it says that caught up is, and it would say that, well, maybe Jesus. It wasn't talking about Jesus, because this person was caught up. But John doesn't put down a time here. He doesn't put down a sequence of events. Jesus was born. Jesus did minister. Jesus did die. Jesus did ascend. But, all that happened in a twinkling in the great scheme of things. So he was caught up. Now, he did things before he left, but so the devil comes to kill him, and that was the whole entire argument about this whole entire thing. Next slide, please. Is the devil wants to kill the child. And next slide, please. Is there no other slide? Oh, I didn't know what happened. So, in Revelation 12:12, and it's kind of interesting here. It says this. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell on them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, and because he knoweth that he hath but a short time. So the devil is now coming to the earth in the latter days. If we think it is bad now, which it is, wait until he is behind every political office. Washington right now is a joke. It is, because the Democrats and the Republicans collectively are not doing anything for America. They fight their little wars and they stay that way, but I mean, we just had an election and we don't even know if we've got a president. That's crazy, ain't it? But Washington has become a joke, and I believe that behind this is the nefarious works of Satan. And I think that it's going to get a lot worse. As he, realizing his time is short, how many of you believe that the time of our departure is a lot closer today than it was yesterday? Okay. We're all in agreement there that it's time for us to leave. All right? So, and I don't think I could go wrong when I say from yesterday to today. That's 24 hours more. So, the point is, we know he's coming back. But then again, if you go back in time, in 1947, people were encouraged not to teach out of the book of Revelation. It was a closed book. No one was to teach out of it. But God, remember, in the Old Testament, He said, once more I will assemble my nation out of every kindred, nation, and tongue into their own place. 1948, Israel became a nation. In a single day. One day they weren't, the next day they were. Israel took back all of the Holy Land. Who would have thought they had come of age and they had taken it back? Now we're seeing more and more and more of the revelation of Jesus Christ in the latter days. So I don't think that it's a question anymore that as he, the devil, is aware that his time has become short, he's going to get worse and worse. He's going to move like he's never moved before, and we're going to see it. So the thing is, and some would, I think, reject the idea that the devil is that much of a foe. But have you noticed today, and I know I'm going to get into trouble for this, but have you noticed today that every single show on television, just about, has to include a homosexual? It has to include sexual encounters without the idea of marriage. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. I mean, I'm not going to go into all of it. I'm just saying that things have changed to the point where regular television is continually titillating and doing everything that it can to entice the hearts of men and women, boys and girls, away from true values and get their values obscured by the darkness of hell. We are inundated with information that is false. So our programs are all, I mean, just recently, I was watching Something Safe, House Hunters of America. You can't go wrong. It's on our channel 24 hours, 7 days a week. Somebody's got 3 houses to select from. And if you get the wrong house, I don't know what happens. You only get 3. But they had to have, they had to have a transgender couple. They had to have a homosexual couple, a lesbian couple. I guess that's the same thing. I don't know. I can't keep up with all of the gender deprivation anymore, but so they have to have that. And I am hoping that Dr. Pohl remains the way he has been in the past, but I am scared. I am scared. I'm out of time. Yeah, nuts. As you know, when I teach, I seem to ramble on, and I don't stay with the material too well. Let me go to the next slide, though. And the next one, too. Well, there's going to be a warfare. But the slide right before that, go back one. It says, Revelation 12:6, that the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared by God. I want you to know that no matter what happens, God is going to have a place for you prepared as well, too. Don't think that the church is going to be neglected during this time. God said, because you have kept the word of my patience, I will keep thee from the hour of great temptation that shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. You need to understand that God is going to keep his own, just as he keeps Israel. Next slide, please. There is going to be a warfare, and so the devil coming down initiates a battle that ignites the final conflict prior to the coming of the Son to rule all the nations. And that's where I'll stop tonight, is the beginning of the warfare. And by the way, go to the next slide. Let me see what it is. Oh yeah, I didn't like that one. Kind of spookily, isn't it? That's kind of a spooky slide. I think if any of you saw this guy and he said, I would like for you to take my mark, how would you feel? Huh? If you saw this guy here, would you take his mark? No. You'd say, no way. You are like the Spookorama, and I am not going to do it. But if he appeared as an angel of light, as he appeared of one that was a great orator, as he presented himself as a great financial genius, if he presented himself as a military genius, if he presented to you as a caring, all about I've got to save the world type of individual, he wouldn't appear like this, would he? He would appear as something that would be pleasing to the eye. Next slide, please. So, remember where they came from. They didn't come to earth as demons. They were angels. When he fell, he brought a third of the angels with him. They were beautiful. If there was any reason to tell you that the Word of God is more important today than it's ever been, it's right here. Because the Word of God will cause you, if you know it, to stop and consider before any of the demons out of hell have the ability to persuade you to do things that are contrary to your spiritual beliefs. So what I'm trying to tell you is, be of good cheer. With all the things that are happening, don't get caught up in the rhetoric that is out there. I don't know that this virus is going to, or this vaccination is going to change our DNA. I've seen no empirical proof of that as far as a medical science is concerned. I have not. It says that if women take it, they'll be sterile. I have no real proof that this is medically anyway possible. I think that if they put a chip in the vaccination the size of a grain of rice, you guys would know it. How many of you have ever got a splinter? Didn't have to be that big to make you know that it was there, right? Well, if somebody put a little tracking device in you that's the size of a grain of rice, you're going to know that too. if there's a nanobat in there, and I don't know how many nanobots there are out there. I'm sure that there's several, and they're very, very small. I got to tell you something, folks. They can track you right now. They don't have to wait. There ain't a one of you that's off the radar. How many of you are off the grid now? One person. You don't have any phones, do you? You have a phone? Okay, because you can get right back on the grid with a phone. You have a car? You're on the grid. In other words, right now, the only way that we can get off is to get a house in West Virginia that doesn't have power, which is common, an outhouse, which is common, down there. So I'll be moving soon. I got my eye on a place down there. 1,800 feet on 18 acres. It costs $18,000. Sounds good to me. It's right by somebody I like. So my neighbor will be okay. Right, Tim? Because they bought a place down there. It's got 78 acres. Right? To 150. Because they measure things different in West Virginia because everything's on a hill. You have 78 identifiable acres, but by the time you get to the top of the hill and go down the other side, it could be 154. So, may the Lord bless you. I have to quit now. And I could have taught more, but he had 3 movies that you had to go through tonight. So, it's all one's fault. I hope you all enjoyed tonight's lesson. I know I kind of went away from the beaten path here, but I guess what I want you to understand is this day's not going to catch you unaware. Scripture says it will not catch you unaware. We're going to know. We're going to know. So, those of you that want to take it up with me right after service about how wrong I was, I will certainly invite you to talk to Bob and leave me alone. So I hope you've enjoyed tonight's. Leave $1 up here. It goes to the children. This will be what? No. Okay, yeah. Next Wednesday will be the last night. Do we have the names already up somewhere? Is that what we're going to do? I don't really know what we're going to do, but we've collected money, so we have. If you know a family that is in trouble, please let us know. By the way, I received a notice from somebody from one of Alice's friends that from California that wants to participate in helping. So that's a good thing. And I think it's great that Alice has a friend, that I didn't know about. Because I thought there was only 2, but there's one all the way in California, so that's good. Alice, do you still love me now after what I just said? Alice, come on, Alice. Alice, speak up now. So, may the Lord bless you all.